adjudicators to the teams and the teams to the adjudicators. So as for the chair for this round, we have Nate Scoborn. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Then on the panel, we have Calix as well as Abhilash. As for the chair's introduction, they've judged multiple tournaments and broken up them, such as the WSDC Paris World Schools debate. And as a debater, they've broken at prestigious they've broken other tournaments such as the Harvard Invitational. They've been seventh best speaker at WSDC in 2021. Prague 2021, they've been a breaking team and went on to debate in the quarters, and Qatar 2021 as well. So that's for the chair's introduction. As for the adjudicators to know the teams that we have in the middle category, which is basically debaters from 7th to 9th grades, is Telangana and Delhi. The motion that we've settled for this particular round in the finals is this House as India will prioritize building better relations with neighboring countries over appeasing the favorable superpower. We settled on this particular motion, keeping in mind status quo as to how volatile the circumstances are, especially for the developing countries, given that the shocks are like pitched against each other, such as like China against US, West East binary. To just navigate through those global concerns and how India should place itself is something that we seek to know about and get opinions on through this particular round. Wishing both the teams all the very best. Over to you, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. As the panel has been introduced, including me, I would like to congratulate from the panel to both teams to making it so far. Congratulations, applauding you. So some basic rules. You have your first minute protected time and your last minute protected time. Please take the POIs between those minutes. So you have, after your 5th minute mark, you have 15 seconds to wrap up your speech. After 15 seconds, the panel will not write down anything anymore. But without further ado, I wish both teams best of luck, and I call the first speaker of proposition to open this floor. Here.
Thank you. So before I start, I'll be telling that I will be taking POIs verbally. So I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. This House as India will prioritize building relations with neighboring countries over appeasing the favorable superpower. This House's burden is to claim that how building relations with neighboring countries matter more, how it's important to prioritize your neighboring countries, also to explain how it values more than appeasing the favorable superpower. To start with the first claim, by having strong relations with neighboring countries, it can lead to having strong military borders, and urgent help will always be ready. We'll even be prepared to fight with some major countries with the help of the neighboring countries. Because when you have peaceful relations with your neighbors, you can have a good sleep because you know that they won't try and harm you. You don't have to worry about invasion all the time because you know there is a similar mutual understanding between the country and they won't try and harm you anyways. So yes, also during time of invasion or attack from during other countries, you can get immediate help from your neighbors. Here, I would like to give an example of India, Japan, and China too. As you're very aware, Japan is not a very strong country, but it has support of India. India and Japan has diplomatic relations, and both are enjoying cordial relations as well, which also gives Japan a sense of security from China. This example pays light to our first claim that having strong relations with neighborhood countries will always be of help. A second claim states that having good relations with your neighbor countries can lead to smooth trade, hence economic growth. When you have good relations with your neighboring countries, it's quite easy to trade because, as we all would agree, that everyone would prefer having to trade with nearby countries. Why would a country want to travel a wholesome distance just to trade with a superpower? It would rather do it with its neighbors. Also, this would lead to mutual gain because if you have good relation with your neighbor country, you both can trade with each other and have a mutual trade and benefit. When talking about India specifically, India accounts for 85% of the total area of South Asia. Other small nations are of strategic importance for India. The peaceful and friendly relations is necessary for India to become a regional power and even have mutual gain in its economy. Hence, having good relations with neighboring countries will also lead to a better economy. Now we have very clear benefits of this motion. Let's move on to a different kind of argument. A third claim has a very simplified statement. Appeasing superpowers can lead to negative consequences as well. A very easy way to explain this is with the example of Ukraine. Ukraine tried to maintain relations with America, or even if that not said, it did not build good relations with its neighbor, Russia itself. leading to consequences which we all are aware of as a Russia-Ukraine crisis. The fourth claim is that the superpowers will only have relations till you provide them things of their interest, whereas there is mutual trade in neighboring countries. Basically, what I'm trying to tell is that when there is trade between a superpower and a country, the superpower is only there for you because you provide them something of their interest. Of course, all countries only maintain relations for benefits, but here is this case. Benefits are literally usually more to the superpower. Plus, superpower can back off any time. Let's take USA and Ukraine. Why does USA support Ukraine? Because of the oil produced. Now let's take China and Pakistan. If we see recent reports, China did support Pakistan. But now when Pakistan went in debt, China didn't get affected because it's a superpower and plus it will always have backup rather than all the other countries. The main point I'm trying to convey here is that mutual trade is better than just trying to appease superpowers. Before closing my case, I would like to give some light to the neighbors first policy by India. So neighborhood first policy of India is a core component of India's foreign policy which focuses on peaceful relations and collaborative relations with its South Asian neighbors of the Indian subcontinent, which is consisting a diverse range of topics like economy, technology, research and education, connectivity, etc. This already shows India's first step towards maintaining good relations with its neighbors. Henceforth, I would like to close my case stating that we are proud to be for this motion, that this House, as India, will prioritize building relations with neighbor countries rather than availing the favorable superpower. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful speech. Without further ado, I would like to call the first speaker of opposition to open opposition's floor. You're here.
So first of all, to clarify, I'll be taking POIs verbally, and I'll start at the count of 3, 2, 1. Good evening to the House at large. In my speech, I will be doing 3 things: establishing our model, make rebuttals, and provide constructors. First, let's lay the groundwork of the world front. India itself has the world's second largest armed force and the fifth highest GDP, making it a formidable power with lots of resources at its disposal. India is a superpower in the making. The superpowers in this debate are USA and Russia, and India's neighbors are primarily only Pakistan, since Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and others don't pose a threat or benefit to India. We consider China a wannabe superpower and a neighbor at the same time. We, the opposition, would prioritize building better relations in terms of military and trade treaties with USA and Russia. Now, on to my rebuttals. The first speaker said relations with neighboring countries will allow you to get immediate help, but failed to mention why our neighbors, China or Pakistan, would want to have relations with us. The prop also gave an example of India and Japan relations, but this example cannot be used since India and Japan are not neighbors in any way. The prop also said that a superpower will always ask for something of their interest, but India and Russia are a give and take relation, not one way. Now, on to my constructors. The stakeholders in this debate are the External Affairs Ministry, the population of India, and the rest of the world. Our burdens today is to prove to you why being an ally to the USA and Russia rather than our neighbors is more beneficial to India as a country. To prove our case, we have 2 main arguments with multiple points divided in my speech as well as my second speaker's speech. A. What are the benefits of pursuing relations with superpowers? And B. Why it is practically not possible and a blunder to keeping up relations with our neighbors. Our first contender is Russia. Let's ask ourselves why we really should be friends with Russia. Russia-India relationships go back almost 100 years. Does the proposition want to really ruin this amazing friendship over a terrorist fostering country like Pakistan or a dictatorship like China? Russia is our
Yeah.
singular largest military supplier today. It provides us with 60% of our arms import. Through the numerous treaties, India has access to all military establishments in Russia, which grants us a vast pool of resources. Russia sells us
POI.
crude oil at cheap prices, which is the backbone of any economy. India also works in collaboration with Russia to produce the Sputnik coronavirus vaccine and its various trade treaties that benefit India and Russia, like the Act in the Far East. Russia is also in the process of building ties with China, and that becomes a deadly combination. India can stop this by being the better friend of Russia. As stated by our External Affairs Minister, we don't completely agree with all the actions taken by Russia, but for our own vested interest, find that Russia is a vital ally. I'll take that POI now.
The proposition never mentioned that it will ruin its relationship with the other superpower countries. So how can you mention that
Okay,
it's ruining
so
its
if you
relationship?
read the motion properly and the information slide, it clearly states that you can only be friend with one, the superpower or the neighboring state. So you clearly have to choose one of the two, and we choose the superpower. Okay, now on to my next constructive. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And our second contender is USA. USA is one country which doesn't even
POI.
need an explanation to be friends with. But since the proposition was unaware of the benefits, I'll explain. USA is the most powerful country in the world with the strongest military force and technology, which surpasses any other nation by a generation. The US is currently not our closest ally, but we do have some amount of relations with them. This furthers our case since it is now more vital than ever before to build stronger relations. The US is India's most comprehensive strategic partner, and cooperation between the two extends across multiple areas such as trade, defense, intelligence,
POI.
cyberspace, civil nuclear energy, education, and health. No, thank you. India, with its billion plus population, geographic spread, and economic trajectory, can prove to be a great advantage even for America. An Asian pivot minus India simply lacks any credibility. The USA's single greatest threat is China, who is also India's single largest threat, which means that the US will always support us in our fight against China due to a vested interest. Hence, we safeguard ourselves against China by befriending America. America's military withdrawal from Afghanistan has reduced its dependence on Pakistan for supply routes. This will lead to India US counter-terrorism cooperation to expand further and apply pressure on Pakistan to abandon support to terrorist groups, helping India develop high-yield variety of wheat that has changed food scarcity to self-sufficient country. And the Chandrayaan-1 was possible only and only because of US-India space cooperation. These benefits from a partnership with Russia and the US is unique only since any of our neighbors can't provide us with the same benefits. This directly furthers the aim of our debate of benefiting India as a country. The second argument about why it is practically not possible and a blunder to keeping up relations with our neighbors will be taken up by our second speaker. Our case is simple. By keeping up relations with superpowers, we benefit national interests and stability. Thank you.
Thank you very much for what was an amazing speech. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the second speaker of proposition to continue their case. Here.
Before I begin, I will take POIs verbally. I will start in 3, 2, 1. The question is not to simply exist, but to make a place for yourself. In today's debate, we stand as proposition. Before my constructive arguments, I would first like to reply to some points of rebuttal. The first speaker of opposition says that the neighboring countries cannot provide us. They clearly say cannot provide us with any benefits. Did you even consider them in the first place? They did not. They conveniently threw them out by saying Pakistan, as in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and countries like Myanmar, do not pose a threat. So let us just say they do not exist. How convenient, isn't it, for opposition? Then, secondly, they say that they elaborate on various problems like those of counterterrorism and other problems as well. Proposition provides the solution for that. But opposition does not see that. They continue with just giving examples of USA and Russia. Is there not any superpower in the world except that? Even a minor superpower country in the world except that? All they talk about for most of their debate is USA and Russia. When USA, if they were so content on that, itself has undermined the authority of the UN in so many instances and also preserves uni popularity, which has been proved as dangerous, has had various campaigns to preserve their uni popularity, and that has been proved as dangerous by many communities that we talk of. Now, moving on to my on what my first proposition speaker said, we have successfully established the practicality of our argument in the sphere of economy. In the arguments of the first speaker, to my constructive arguments there too. Firstly, it emphasizes on the strength of individual neighboring countries towards long-term success. My second argument emphasizes on the negative consequences of appeasing superpower countries, which is a lack of power. Now I will elaborate on my arguments. First argument. My first argument says why India should prioritize building better relations with neighboring countries. Firstly, A, long-term success and active benefit for our country, and B, strengthening political, historical, and cultural links between countries. How does this happen? The assets of the individual powers of the neighboring countries can be utilized towards the goals mentioned before. Let us take this. If one of our neighboring countries was to be rich in natural resources, one rich in manpower, the other one with property, plant, etc., we propose that all of these benefits of these assets be utilized towards aiding each other while making a mark on an international stage. We also claim that prioritizing relations with neighboring countries also strengthens political, historical, and cultural links. When actively engaging with each other's countries, already with a similar historical background, as of course we're neighboring countries, we come to know more of each other's cultures and histories. This broadens our cultural and historical tolerance and makes us more aware of those we interact with. As an addition to this, we also put forth a united front to the world. I now move on to my second and final argument. The biggest negative consequence to appeasing superpowers is the inevitable fact that it will lead to a lack of complete and supreme control over our country's affairs. How does this happen? What may start as perhaps a conversation would lead us to us being bound to the superpower country in some way or the other and not get the opportunity to make a purely independent decision, which, let's say, in this situation, might affect the fate of our country in the long run. If we were to do what opposition says, to make action on any issue we feel to do so, we will have to worry about an uncountable number of clauses and agreements. Is this really what we want for our country? For it to be bound to another? With opposition's argument, we will always be under the active and passive control of the superpower country. Is this what we want? Passive dependence. I say, with opposition's argument, they do not hold India to a high standard because we, the proposition, believe that India can lead, not be led. This is the inevitable consequence of trying to appease a superpower country. Lastly, we, the proposition, also give a detailed model and our course of action, which will ultimately aim to better relations with neighboring countries and give India a significant stance on an international stage. Our plan consists of three steps. Firstly, we propose India be the one to initiate conversations with neighboring countries and take charge to make sure that everything is done in a systematic manner. This portrays us as the country who initiates peace and also leads. Secondly, we propose economical restrictions be removed with time, like those of tariffs, etc., so that there is endless benefit economically to us and our neighboring countries. Lastly, we propose that governments create campaigns to raise awareness about their plans among their citizens and also arrange conferences and devise plans and schemes with leaders of other neighboring countries to know of their ways and opinions, not simply ignore them like opposition does. I end my speech with this statement. Opposition aims to make India appease superpower countries, seek help from them. But we, the proposition, make India a superpower. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that amazing speech. Without further ado, I would like to call the second speaker of opposition to continue their case. Here.
Yes. To clarify, I'll be taking POIs verbally, and I shall start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good evening to the House at large. My name is Samya Jayachandran, and I am the second speaker of the opposition. It would have been my duty to start with my constructives, but the shortcomings in the proposition speech have forced me to start with my rebuttals. Speaker 2, we are not saying that we should be vassals and servants to superpowers. We are only saying that we should have friendships with them. Speaker 2, I would like to again say that even what we propose should be promoting and increasing India and its economy. I shall be elaborating on this point in my main speech. I would now like to present my constructives in three main sections. Firstly, since India has a unique position as a country that is not very weak or a vassal or any superpower, nor is India at present a superpower itself. Hence, the guiding principle of geopolitics would be to safeguard its interests. Now, let us look at our neighbors: Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. None with economic or military prowess superior to India. And then let us look at the closest neighbor of our neighbors, majorly China, with a long history of economic and military antagonism and competition with India, and a rising superpower in itself. In such a situation, it would be nothing but geopolitical harakiri for India to prioritize relations with neighbors instead of aligning with other superpowers in order to protect and safeguard our interests. Also, prioritizing alignment with the superpower is important for stability and peace in the subcontinent. Just a few years ago, it looked like China was this unstoppable force in the subcontinent, expanding its influence to much to the discomfort of Japan, South Korea, USA, Australia, and India. So it only seems logical that India teams up with other superpowers to suppress China from progressing onwards. I would like to add that relationships should help us in terms of building and sustaining as a nation, and our neighbors would deliver less than the superpowers. Secondly, India to become a superpower has to focus on strategic partnerships rather than just friendly relationship with weak neighbors. And also, we need to avoid unfriendly neighbors like China and Pakistan. Strategic partnerships that focus on export earnings, foreign remittances through employment for skilled Indians aboard, military abroad, military and defense cooperation with superpowers, country terrorism, counterterrorism, protecting internal security, and help from superpowers in the field of emerging technologies. For example, the US is the largest export destination for India with $50 billion export earnings in 2020 to 2021 and generating $87 billion through foreign remittance received in 2021. Consider that against the 200 crores development aid that India set aside for Afghanistan in its budget 2022 to 2023. Moreover, most of the internal security problems of India can be traced to some of our unfriendly neighbors. Thirdly, it is simply just more logical for us to reject the possibility of friendship with the neighbors Pakistan and China as one. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh's recent statement reaffirming New Delhi's resolve to reclaim Pakistan occupied Kashmir simply proves that our best interest would be to drive the Pakistani and Chinese away from JNK to reclaim JNK. I would like to remind the proposition at this point that we are all having this debate to give India what is best for its national interest. Two, Pakistan's revisionist behavior is intensified by its army's ambition to preserve its dominance in domestic politics. Moreover, its possession of nuclear weapons has permitted its military and intelligence services to underwrite a campaign of jihadi terrorism intended to coerce India, with the expectations that Pakistan will remain fundamentally immune to any meaningful military retaliation. This manifestation of hostility towards India makes any kind of diplomatic solution satisfactory both to Islamabad and New Delhi highly elusive. I would like to end my speech by quoting Narendra Modi. I am confident that the friendship of India and America will continue to be a force for good for global peace and stability, for the sustainability of the planet, and for the well being of mankind. And with that, I rest my case.
Thank you for that amazing speech. Without further ado, I would like to call the third speaker proposition to finish their constructive. You're here.
Okay, I'll be starting with 3, 2, and 1. The proposition does not specify why should we only take superpowers for health and not take the neighbors. The neighbors also specify that the second speaker of proposition has specified really well why should we prefer neighbors over superpowers. Also, this proposition really focuses on taking China as example, but I cannot take it as example of India because China is a very, very powerful country. And when we consider power, with this I continue my argument. Today's topic for this debate as India will prioritize building better relations with neighboring countries over appeasing the favorable superpowers. As the vice person said, you can change your friends but not neighbors. Atal Bihari Vajpayee said these lines. India can change its neighbors if just with them. And making the relations thus India aims to build it has to give priority to its neighbors and support them when needed. This is the essence of the Indian government's neighbor first policy. Let's have India wants a peaceful, prosperous, and stable neighborhood. So there is peace, prosperity, and stability in South Asian region, and there is more focus on development. Indian foreign policy has focused on South Asian neighbors. These include countries like Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Maldives. There have been various steps taken to increase stability and reduce tensions in them. Maintaining friendly relations with not only protect the nations from but
Excuse
also
me.
facilitates easy and
Uh,
convenient
Ma'am,
trades.
I
Yes.
guess our third speaker is facing some internet problems. Her voice is not audible to people. So can another speaker from the position take over from here?
I pause the time. It's best that the speaker continues and we all turn off our cameras for better internet quality.
All right.
Okay, I'll continue. Maintaining
Yep.
friendly relations with the neighbors not only protects the nation from security threats, but also facilitates easy and convenient trade. Since India has a pool of high quality resources, exports with neighboring countries can be lucrative for India as it will earn our country valuable foreign exchange reserves. National nations like Sri Lanka and Maldives are strategically more important for India in maintaining peace and harmony, as most of the world trade occurs from Indian Ocean. With this, also appeasing superpowers can lead to negative consequences. For example, Ukraine failed to maintain good relations with Russia, leading to something disastrous that we all know. If we have strong relations with neighboring countries, it will lead to having strong military borders and urgent help will always be ready as we, as India, will always be prepared to fight with the support of the neighboring countries. With this, I conclude that India should maintain good relationships with neighboring countries over appeasing superpowers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that amazing speech. Without further ado, I would like to call the third speaker of opposition to end their constructive. You're here.
A most pleasant evening to the House at large. I'm proud to oppose the motion that we should focus on our neighboring countries as friends instead of superpowers. Starting with the first speaker. The first speaker stated that immediate help from neighbors is very necessary. We said that it helps, that help from neighbors is good because it takes less time. While it does come faster, it is third rate as compared to the powerful superpowers who actually have the proper resources to help us out, unlike countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, etc., who are already struggling financially, politically, and industrially. Almost everything is imported from other regions to Pakistan. They are highly dependent on other countries. And Sri Lanka's army merely stood and watched as the people stormed in via rebellion and burned the president's house down. Can you seriously count on countries like this one? They said smooth trade would help. Would you rather have smooth trade with a country that's 10 times weaker than you, than a superpower that can actually help you, that can, as you say, help India become the superpower, or someone who would benefit more from your alliance, your resources than you are? You said benefits usually go to the superpower. How will the benefits usually go to the superpower? The benefits will obviously automatically come to us, considering that they are the ones investing more than we are. He said that China did not support Pakistan when it went into debt, but promised support. That's politics. So if China didn't support, then do you think other superpowers won't support too? That's actually very racist of you to say that since that happened once, people can't change again. You said that India's historical links will be strengthened with countries like Pakistan. Well, let me remind you, those historical links are something that we really don't want to strengthen. Remember the partition. At least 10,000 Hindu women and 10,000 Muslim women were taken and raped, murdered, tortured, put behind bars. Why? Because of our religion. Do you really think we want to pick this history back up? You said that we might end up bound to the superpower country. How will we end up bound to a superpower country? You didn't give any evidence, any explanation. It was just a fact and statement put forward without any backup.
POI.
You said that we will have no, thank you. You said that we should be the country that initiates contact. That means that why should we be the country that initiates contact? Wouldn't that make us begging for attention? All of the points of the proposition have been proven null and void in these few rebuttals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Without further ado, I would like to call the reply speaker of opposition to finish their side of the debate. You're here.
Okay, I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. There are three main clashes in this debate. The first one is on which side of the house does India feel safer in a militarily way. The op clearly wins this clash since India can probably hold off any attack against Pakistan and China for enough time so that support from USA and Russia arrives. But this does not work the other way around. The second clash is on which side does India benefit economically. This as well is clearly won by all, since Russia provides us with oil, which is crucial to our economy, and without it, our whole economy would fall. The superpowers are able to provide us with, with more technology and a vast market, much larger than any of our neighbors can. The third clash is if Bangladesh and Sri Lanka type small countries are actually our neighbors. We agree that these countries are our neighbors, but we do not need to keep up relations with these countries since only they would benefit and we wouldn't because we would be the ones investing. The proposition did not understand the motion clearly. It clearly states that we can choose one, the superpowers or the neighbors, not both. The other team also failed to address any negatives of why we should befriend superpowers, but we were able to keep this point standing by showing how India and Russia relations are clearly alive and well, Russia being a superpower. To conclude, we have proven our case through two arguments. A, what are the benefits of pursuing relations with superpowers? And B, why it is practically not possible and a blunder to keeping up relations with our neighbors. These two arguments clearly prove why being an ally to USA and Russia rather than our neighbors is more beneficial to India as a country, which means we, the proposition team, have satisfied the aim of this debate and hence shall rise. Once again, I repeat, our case is simple. By keeping up relations with superpowers, we benefit national interests and stability. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And to conclude this debate, I would like to welcome the proposition reply. You're here.
I will start in 3, 2, 1. Opposition continually seems to say why having relations with neighboring countries is harmful. We accept that. We accept all of the harms that they're giving. We say we understand why they're saying that. But continually, they fail to say why relating with superpower countries is more beneficial in the long run. All they say is they talk about peace and stability. How do you retain that in the long term? There is no mention of that in their model or the solution whatsoever. To boil this debate down to one clash, opposition says that their plan works towards the success and stability of our country, India, in the long run. But proposition clearly wins this debate because we give a detailed plan of action and a model step by step on how this will be long term. We mentioned citizens, which are the stakeholders, the countries, the neighboring countries, and ourselves, the central government. We appease and satisfy all the stakeholders involved in our plan of action. Secondly, the reason why we, the proposition, win this debate is that we, first of all, satisfy all the stakeholders. We acknowledge the superpower countries and the neighboring countries, which opposition fails to do so in a detailed manner. They just touch and go, and never elaborate on it. Lastly, what I would like to say to opposition is that the pen is mightier than the sword. It is talks of peace and stability which makes us human and not animals. Lastly, there's a Latin saying which goes acta non verba, deeds, not words. We look at both deeds and words, and opposition continues to give examples of jihad, etc., and does not talk of peace and stability in the long run. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for what was an amazing debate. Congratulations to both sides. We judges will get a breakout room and we'll move to it. But congratulations to both teams for making it this far, and congratulations.
All right, if the teams want, they can stay here till 8:30. But then if you want